As we return to Turner Field, we're joined now by Hall of Famer and 10-time All-Star Joe Morgan, the MVP the last time the All-Star Game was played in Atlanta in 1972. His 10th inning single off the Orioles' Dave McNally won it for the National League. As we've noted, and we'll talk more about this as the broadcast continues, there are many big names missing tonight, but the game still has plenty of star power, some of them established stars, others on the brink of superstardom. Pick one guy from each league that you're really focusing on tonight.
Well, Bob, it's very rare when we get an opportunity to see a player that could be the best ever at his position. But that's what we have in Ivan Rodriguez. He is a great defensive catcher, a powerful hitter. He runs well. He hits for a high average. I mean, eventually he could be the best catcher ever. And that's saying a lot.
Especially coming from a guy who was a teammate of the great Johnny Bench. It really carries some weight. There's a guy over in the National League who is just about to bust loose. The players know about him. The people who follow the game closely know about him. The casual fans will soon.
Well, they call him Bad Vlad. That's Vladimir Guerrero of the Montreal Expos. This guy has potential that's unlimited. Great power hitter, runs. He has a .369 batting average, one of the strongest arms in baseball. And these two guys really kind of show the influx of great Latin American talent that we have in the game today, and is on display every day at some ballpark. The Latin Americans have showed that they are great baseball players.
In fact, roughly a third of the players selected for this game are Latin American. Joe Torre and Bobby Cox beating out at home plate. The American League has won the last 3 All-Star games and 9 of the last 12. But overall, the National League, because of their dominance in the 60s and 70s and part of the 80s, still leads the series by a wide margin, 39-29, with one tie. When you were playing, Joe, there was a real passion surrounding this game and a real desire to win, I think especially on the part of the National Leaguers.
Well, you were really identified with a league in those days, Bob. There have been so many superstar players move from the American League to the National League and vice versa. But in those days, all the National League superstars stayed in the National League and all the American leaguers were in the American League. And you wanted to prove that your league was better than the other league. And I think now that that's not the case anymore.
The game is still important, but there's so much hoopla surrounding it, the home run derby and whatnot, the ceremonies before the game, that it's leaning more in the direction of an exhibition than a torrid competition.
Well, I agree, and a lot of the players are just happy to be here, and that's great because I think it's a great exhibition. I mean, the fans enjoy it. The fans get a chance to see all the great players on the field at the same time. And I think that's what the All-Star Game was meant to be. All the great players on the field at the same time.
Waiting for the National Leaguers to take the field. Randy Johnson will start for them. That surprises some people because he pitched on Sunday and got his 14th victory against only 2 defeats. With a win at Oakland. But this would have been his day to throw on the side anyway, and he's going to pitch just 1 inning. No matter how well he does, it's 1 inning only for Randy Johnson, and then he can take his normal turn when the season resumes.
But it also points out that this is very important to Randy. He wanted to pitch. I mean, it's been very easy for Randy to say, hey, I pitched on Sunday, I'd like to take this time off. Well, you see what he's done so far this season. I mean, he has been the guy in the National League. 1.80 earned run average. That's amazing. But he is actually a better pitcher now than he was when he won the Cy Young Award.
Well, he has 198 strikeouts in 137 innings of work, while yielding only 34 walks, an incredible ratio.
And I think part of the reason that he is a better pitcher and he walks fewer batters now is because he has changed a lot of his delivery. He uses a little more variety in his pitches now, and he doesn't exert so much energy on every pitch.
You know, there are lots of ways to measure effectiveness, but by one measure, Randy Johnson and Pedro Martinez could be having the 2 greatest pitching seasons of all time. At this point in the season, their ERAs are better than their respective league averages by a larger percentage than any pitcher in any season in the game's history. With offense exploding all around baseball, you're actually a pretty good pitcher if your ERA is 4. There are some All-Stars with ERAs in the vicinity of 5. Now you have Pedro at 1.44, and that's pitching in Fenway in a DH league, and Randy Johnson at 1.80. That's Bob Gibson or Sandy Koufax territory.
And let's take a look at the defense for the National League, as they are the home team. There you see Guerrero, Edmund, Sosa in the outfield, Chipper Jones, Larkin, Kent, and Galarraga at first, and Jason Kendall, son of Fred Kendall, behind the plate, former Major League catcher, Freddie Kendall.
Andres Galarraga, the cancer in remission after he missed all of last season, an All-Star at age 39. And he was accorded perhaps the warmest reception of any All-Star in the pregame introductions.
And he showed you that he appreciated it more than anyone else. And he's just so happy that he's been able to come back. But just think about it. It would have been enough just to come back and play, Bob, but he's having an all-star season. He's hitting for power. He's driving in runs, and the Braves are leading the National League.
Sammy Sosa had been slumping with all the trade talk surrounding him. In recent days, as you know, he's proclaimed that he intends to stay in Chicago. He certainly was loose last night. He jacked 26 out of here in the home run competition.
I talked to him about 3 days ago, Bob, and he told me that he was definitely going to stay in Chicago the remainder of the year, and that did put a smile on his face. He knows now that he's going to be there, and he says he really hasn't had a hot streak yet this year as far as home runs are concerned. And here's Randy Johnson, and we talked about him being a little different than in the past. Well, the difference is that he always threw the riding fastball and the big breaking slider. He has added a sinker to his repertoire, and he also throws a shorter, harder slider. So it makes him almost impossible to hit now. He was really tough before, but he's a much better pitcher now than he was, 2 years ago.
Between the nearly 100-mile-an-hour heat and the wicked slider, and then you throw in the size and that motion, he leaves left-handed hitters trembling.
Well, very few left-handed hitters play against him nowadays, Bob. They always have a convenient day off when Randy Johnson is pitching. And I don't blame the managers. It's almost impossible to hit this guy from the left side.
There's his opponent, David Wells. The starters tonight are not exactly prototypes when you talk about big league physiques. Johnson's the tallest pitcher in Major League history at 6'10" and a lanky 230. David Wells is 6'4" and listed with a question mark behind it at 235.
But you know what? They both get the job done. And I've said all my career that if you're left-handed and you can throw strikes, you can win in the major leagues.
Roberto Alomar particularly grateful on this night that he's a switch hitter. From the right side against Johnson, flashbulbs popping on the first pitch. It's Larkin scooping it up and throwing him out.
Bob, Roberto Alomar is the only starter on the American League that wasn't hitting 300, and this guy hits 300 every year. He's just off to a slow start this year. I believe he'll be up to 300 before the season is over.
With Alex Rodriguez sidelined, Derek Jeter starts tonight. Obviously, both Jeter and Garciaparra are terrific, but Garciaparra of the Red Sox has the better numbers at midseason. Jeter fouls it away. We asked Joe Torre why Derek Jeter gets the start. Some might suspect, especially those in Boston, that it's a hometown call by the Yankee manager. But Joe had a better explanation. He said, no, Garciaparra started last year's game. Jeter is pretty much his equal. I select him to start tonight, but Garciaparra will play about the same amount of time. Have there ever been 3 shortstops in one league at the same time with numbers like these? A liner to left. It'll drop for a hit. Down the line. Possible extra bases. Jeter on his way to second as Guerrero fires a bullet toward the middle of the diamond, but Jeter is in standing.
Well, Randy Johnson gets this pitch up a little bit, not exactly where he wants it. High fastball, and Jeter rips it down the left field line. Very rarely you will see a fastball like that up and away pulled off of Randy Johnson by a right-handed hitter.
And now it's the Yankee center fielder, 4-time All-Star, switch hitting Bernie Williams. Comes in at 329.
And Bernie feels he's a better hitter from the right side.
A broken bat roller. Larkin looks Jeter back. And Galarraga handles the throw at the other end. With Cal Ripken sidelined, no All-Star has been with his team longer than Barry Larkin, his 15th season in Cincinnati.
Bobby, you're getting the feeling here that none of these hitters want to get behind Randy Johnson and see that slider. Every time he's thrown a fastball first pitch, they've swung at it.
The honor of hitting cleanup in the American League lineup goes to Jason Giambi. Now, he just saw Johnson this past weekend in Oakland.
He saw a lot of that right there, too. He chased a lot of breaking ball. Randy struck out 13 of the Oakland A's in only 5 innings, 5+ innings in his last outing.
Giambi's a first-time All-Star. He has that short power stroke, and he's down in the count 0-2. Mike Riley, a 24-year veteran, working his 3rd All-Star game, has the plate. Mark Hirschbeck at first, Wally Bell at second, Paul Schreiber at third, Brian Onora left field line, Lazaro Diaz calls the plays down the line and right. The 0-2 pitch struck him out with some high heat. Jeter doubles, but he's stranded at second. That's it for Johnson. A tidy half inning. National Leaguers coming up.
When the moment comes, will you have what it takes to finish? Gatorade, is it in you? By Nextel, how business gets done. Call 1-800-NEXTEL-9. And by Nike.
Well, let's take a look at the American League defense that will be behind David Wells. Carl Everett, Bernie Williams, Jermaine Dye in the outfield, Travis Fryman, Jeter, Alomar, Giambi, and Ivan Rodriguez behind the plate. And David Wells, like Randy Johnson, having an awesome season, 15-2. And I really believe that David Wells is still proving to the New York Yankees that they made a mistake. I mean, he wants to prove that more than anything else, and he's doing a great job of that. Throws a fastball, curveball, a slider, and a changeup. Uses a lot of fastballs, changeup. And the one thing about David Wells, he will come after these National League hitters. He proved that when he started in Colorado 2 years ago. He's not afraid to challenge the hitters.
At age 37, he may be better than he's ever been. Facing his one-time Cincinnati teammate Barry Larkin. Larkin appearing in his 11th All-Star game and taking strike one. Randy Johnson in the top half of the inning threw just 8 pitches. In retiring the American Leaguers, 7 of them were strikes. Larkin's bat goes flying as he swings and misses.
And that's what a left-handed pitcher does so well against right-handed hitters. Ball tailing away, and that's why they're so effective. That's why I say if they can throw strikes, they can win in the major leagues, because right-handed hitters have trouble with this pitch. Watch, it just moves away. And that's a natural movement for a left-handed pitcher to a right-handed hitter.
And the 0-2 pitch is popped up on the infield. Giambi in from first base to take it.
You'll see a lot of that from David Wells. He went away twice and then came up and in on Barry Larkin.
A round of applause for hometown favorite Chipper Jones, who wasn't an All-Star last year, even though he was the National League's MVP.
How do you figure that?
You can't.
That's amazing.
A switch hitter who used to do almost all of his damage from the left side, but when Don Baylor was the hitting coach here with Atlanta, he really got Jones to be more aggressive from the right side of the plate. It began to pay dividends a year ago. Hit through the box for a base hit.
And that's what you have to do against a left-handed pitcher like Wells. The ball's tailing away. You do not try to pull it. Watch, he doesn't try to pull this ball. It's a fastball on the outside part of the plate, tailing away from him. Look at that, off the plate. Actually, he just reaches out and hits it right back through the middle. You can't pull this pitch. You just go back through the middle with it. Good hitting there by Chipper Jones.
Jones at first with 1 out, and here's the Expos' Vladimir Guerrero, who is merely hitting .369 with 23 homers. Rips one foul and sends them scattering in the American League dugout.
Vladimir is a free swinger. He doesn't care if it's a curveball, fastball, whatever. If he thinks he can reach it, he will swing at it. Look at this. That's a breaking ball right off the bat. I mean, he rips. See the rotation of his hips? That's where he generates so much power. Now watch the guys in the dugout. You better watch the game.
An all-Canada matchup here. Blue Jays Wells to the Expos Guerrero. A line drive grabbed at second base by Alomar, and scampering back to first is Chipper Jones.
That's an unusual play in that Alomar was playing him up the middle. Vladimir hits the ball all over, but this pitch is away, and he rips it up the middle. But right there is Roberto Alomar. He has a knack of being at the right place at the right time.
And now Sammy Sosa. 23 homers for the season after hitting 66 and 63 the last 2 full years. Foul to the seats.
Not bad numbers, huh? Look at that. 66, 63. He actually became the first player in the history of the game to hit 60 plus 2 years in a row, and then he was joined by Mark McGwire, of course.
And McGwire out-homered him
both
in
years.
each year by season's end. Jones at first with 2 down, and the 0-1 pitch to Sosa is high. Wells does not have an overpowering fastball, but he does have that off-the-table curveball.
And we haven't seen but one curveball. He threw it to Vladimir on the first pitch. But what David Wells does is he throws strikes and he stays ahead of the hitters.
His 1-1 pitch is bounced foul. It's an understatement to say that Wells has good control. He walks barely more than a hitter for every 9 innings of work. That's the best ratio in the American League. And what he has always been is a great postseason pitcher.
And the other thing he's always been is a free spirit.
One look at him, even if you didn't know anything about him, would tell you that. Here's the 1-2.
Beautiful.
Got him looking. Each starter allows a hit in the first, but each runner is stranded. No score after 1 in Atlanta.
Tim Gray back in Atlanta in the National League dugout with the starting pitcher tonight, Randy Johnson. You threw just 8 pitches, 7 strikes. Now you pitched on Sunday, easily could have passed on pitching here. Why was it so important to you, Randy?
Well, I mean, I got selected to the All-Star team. I want to represent our organization along with Steve Finley, and it's a great honor to be an All-Star. And you know, pitch 1 inning, I didn't know I was going to throw 8 pitches, especially the way I warmed up today, but I'll definitely take that.
Now you've had back surgery. You've thrown a lot of pitches. You're 36 years old. As you go down to the second half of the season, is your back a concern at all?
Not at all. I haven't had, I've only been on disabled list 2 times in 12 years, so, and I haven't had any problems with my back since I've had surgery, and that was back in '96. So,
Randy, good luck in the second half. The Diamondbacks are doing well.
Thank you.
All right, back upstairs to you, Bob.
Thank you, Jim and Randy. The new National League pitcher is Danny Graves, who didn't expect to be here. He was literally packed to go fishing when he got the call after Greg Maddux was hurt. 26-year-old right-hander from the Reds facing Carl Everett of the Red Sox and getting ahead of him 1-2. Graves is 9-1. His ERA is under 2, and he saved 14 of a possible 15.
Bob, the great thing about the replacements, the guys who were chosen to replace the injured players, they could have easily have been chosen to be here in the first place. They are good players. They're all-star caliber players anyway. There just wasn't enough room for everyone.
Everett with a drive toward right center field. Sprinting over is Jim Edmonds, and this is nothing for him. One of the best ball hawks in all of baseball. Listen to this conversation in the American League dugout between Joe Torre and his former pitcher, and his pitcher again for a night, David Wells.
Okay, will they let you? It's your call. No, I can't pinch hit, and you go out there and pitch. If you want to go ahead and go up there and hit, that's fine. Okay? Yeah. All right, that's fine. I just don't want, you know, just go ahead and take 3 pitches. I don't care. I don't want you to hurt yourself that way. All right. All right? All right. So you want to hit? Yeah. Okay, that's fine. He'll hit.
Wells is scheduled to work 2 innings. If 2 men get on in this inning, pretty clear that Torre is going to let him back, which might be comical. Here's Ivan Rodriguez.
Bob,
fouling it off.
I think this situation brings to mind that maybe we should have an opportunity where they can pinch hit for the pitcher and let the pitcher stay in the ball game.
In the All-Star game.
In the All-Star game, it would give you an opportunity to use more players And I don't think a lot of people want to see the pitchers hit anyway.
Whether you like the DH in other games or not, in the All-Star game, there's no reason for a pitcher to hit.
Right. And I think because you want 2 innings from David Wells, but if a couple of guys get on, you know, you'd have to hit. And in some cases, the managers have been forced to take the pitcher out because they did not want him to go to the plate. But David said he would go.
In past eras, a guy who could catch like Rodriguez, if he could hit 225, you'd be thrilled. He's hitting 366 with 80 RBIs at the break and slugging over 700. Still 0-2.
And he has improved every year, Bob. I mean, he's improved some part of his game. I mean, he hits for a higher average now, and now he's added power. I mean, he is a power hitter now, and he's still a great defensive player. I mean, he really controls the game from behind the plate, and that's what Johnny Bench did so well. They control the game from behind the plate.
Bench started 9 straight All-Star games as a catcher. This is Rodriguez's 8th consecutive start. Bench's string of 9 is the record. Rodriguez has tied Yogi Berra for the American League mark for catchers with his 8th straight start. It's his 9th appearance as an All-Star overall, and he's still only 28 years old. The 1-2 pitch from Graves. A line drive. He does this so often, going the opposite way. He'll stop at first.
What's difficult to do is to take this inside pitch and hit it hard. Watch how he pulls his hands in and goes out the other way. Look at that. I mean, he just rips the ball to right field. Most guys would try to pull that ball. He just inside out to the right field, but that's the way he hits. And what that allows him to do is stay on the ball longer because he's not pulling off.
And he runs especially well for a catcher. He'll steal a base for you now and then.
Something that Johnny Bench also did well.
Here's the former Atlanta Brave, Jermaine Dye. Swings on the first pitch, lofts it into shallow left field. Here's Guerrero to take it. Look at the smile on his face as he cocked the arm, just daring Rodriguez to try something. He wants to show his skills off here tonight.
And you like to see a guy having fun on the baseball diamond. And he's having fun.
This is one of the most gifted players ever. And I'm not dealing in hype here.
No.
Talk to every baseball man. They will tell you that this is a guy who they believe will soon bear comparison to Willie Mays, to Roberto Clemente, to Ken Griffey Jr., to Mickey Mantle when he was healthy. Swing and a miss by Travis Fryman. He starts at third with Cal Ripken injured. Troy Glass of the Angels will come on later in the game. Slow roller foul.
And like the situation at shortstop, we asked Joe Torre why Travis Fryman over Troy Glaus, and he basically said Fryman had never started an All-Star game, and he is a veteran, and so he gave him the nod. There's Troy Glaus, great young player from the California Angels. Joe Torre.
If Fryman can reach with 2 out here, Wells will get his chance to bat.
Let's hope he doesn't reach. I don't know if I want to see that.
Look at Wells, though, in the on-deck circle. You know his idol was Babe Ruth. He wears number 33, which is Ruth's number twice. Paid a pretty penny once for an old battered Babe Ruth cap and tried to wear it on the mound in a regular game, and they wouldn't let him. And they're not going to let him bat either because Fryman's strikeout ends the American League second. Nice bit of work by Danny Graves. And we're back to Turner Field after this. Ivan Rodriguez got the most votes of any major leaguer for the All-Star game. And Mike Piazza of the Mets led the National League ballot. These are not the sort of figures you generally associate with catchers. Listen to Joe Torre, who once won a batting title himself after the base hit by Rodriguez in the last half inning.
That's all. He's only hitting 366, 26 homers, 80 RBIs. He's a catcher. And we've spent all our careers telling everybody how tough it was to catch.
Of course, by the time Torre won that batting title in St. Louis, he was playing third base.
Bob, look at these numbers. Last year he hit 332, 35 home runs, 113 RBIs, and 25 stolen bases. I mean, that's special, and he was American League most valuable player. And he plays in the heat of Texas, and that's very tough on catchers.
Here's the Giants' Jeff Kent swinging on the first pitch. Giambi over for a look, but it's out of play. Kent leads the National League with 85 runs driven home at the break. But you've got to put some of this in perspective. There are 46 major leaguers, 46 with 60 or more RBIs at the break. There will be easily more than 50 major leaguers who will drive in better than 100 runs, some of them better than 120, which used to be thought of as a monster season. Swing and a miss by Kent. To show you how things have changed in a little more than half a decade, in the 10 best seasons of Hank Aaron's career, he averaged 39 homers and 110 RBIs. There are about 36 major leaguers on pace to exceed both those figures this year. And with all due respect to the great talent in the game today, I don't think there are that many guys better than Hank Aaron alive now or ever.
I agree with you. I don't think they're better. But hey, those numbers you talked about may be exceeded by 3 or 4 second basemen.
And what does that tell you, oh second baseman of years past?
I have to tell you, I think the second basemen are pretty good.
Broken bat roller. Giambi has it. Wells covers, but he waves him off. And now listen to the reception for Andres Galarraga. They let him know how they felt about him in the pregame ceremony and now in his first at bat. And he lines it hard to left field, but Carl Everett scarcely has to move to take it. That was blistered, but right at the American League's left fielder.
Bob, I think Andres is very well named. They call him El Gato, the cat, the big cat. And I mean, he's like a big cat. He's easy to love. I mean, he is just a great individual.
That smile is ever present, even last year. With his health so much a concern, he remained upbeat for the most part.
Right.
Jim Edmonds swings on the first one and fouls it to the screen. A year ago, he missed more than half the season with the Angels because of injuries and batted only .250 with 5 home runs. This year, he's a bona fide MVP candidate, at least off the season's first half returns, hitting .341 with 25 homers in St. Louis. And playing a fabulous center field.
And he has a very unusual hitting style, Bob. He really doesn't stride. Most people stride forward with their right foot or their front foot. He just kind of lifts his back heel and drops it back down. He does not generate a lot with his lower body.
You might as well go up there swinging against Wells because he's not going to walk you.
That's true. Let's take a look at this swing. Now watch. He doesn't stride forward. Look at his front foot. He just lifts his heel and puts it back down. And that's how he starts the bat. Most hitters use their lower body to generate bat speed. He does it with his top half of his body.
Talking about going up swinging against Wells, it isn't just that it's unlikely that he'll walk you. It's unlikely that you'll get ahead in the count and be able to sit on a pitch. He's always working ahead of you.
And Bob, that's one of the problems I think a lot of pitchers have in the game today. They fall behind and then they have to give in to the hitter. But your better pitchers are ahead of the hitters and the hitters have to give in to them a little bit.
Here's his 1-2 pitch. And Edmonds spoils it. This is the second time Edmonds has been an all-star. He would have been a reserve, but Ken Griffey Jr.'s injury makes him the starter in center field. Jason Kendall, the Pirate catcher, is on deck. And this one is lifted back of third. Travis Fryman has no play on it.
And Bob, it's kind of ironic that Mark McGwire was making a joke. He said, you know, if he's not elected to the All-Star team, I may not play. And look, he's the one that's not here with an injury, and Edmonds is playing. So unusual, but McGwire was making a joke, he said, and people kind of took it literally.
When you call the roll of those who are missing tonight, they're not just all-stars, they're superstars. Every one of them a certain or likely Hall of Famer. 9 of them in all. Giambi can't get it. It's through the hole, a 2-out single for Jim Edmonds. And folks, you can log on to MSNBCSports.com for a comprehensive in-progress total cast of the All-Star Game featuring real-time stats, pitching and hitting charts, and an in-game box score. Plus, after the game, listen to audio reports featuring players from both leagues and a special look ahead to the second half of the season. All at MSNBCSports.com, the official website of NBC Sports. Here's Kendall, the starter for the ailing Piazza. That one rattled Rodriguez's cage just a bit.
Again, David Wells throws a strike right on the inside part of the plate. Kendall fouls it, gets a piece of Rodriguez.
That one's down and in, 1-1. Here are the 9 who are missing. Ripken, A-Rod, Manny Ramirez, Pedro Martinez from the American League, and from the National, McGwire, Griffey, Ponce, Piazza, and Maddox. There'll be some plaques with those names in Cooperstown someday. 1-2. Jason Kendall has come back to all-star form after one of the most gruesome injuries in recent memory. A broken ankle last year, which ended his season and placed his career in doubt. And he's come back to hit .319. Another 1-2 pitch. And a called strike 3. So David Wells puts his 2 innings in the book, and no one's broken through yet.
Back here at the All-Star Game in Atlanta, Jimmy Roberts in the dugout with the American League pitcher of the first 2 innings, David Wells, his son Brandon. David, we heard an interesting discussion between you and your old manager Joe Torre about hitting. What was your strategy had you had a chance to bat?
Well, I'd probably known me would have been swinging for something, but he encouraged me to just take 3 and sit on down. But you know, when you get up in this situation, if you get the opportunity, you can't leave the bat on your shoulder.
The expectations of Toronto this year have clearly been exceeded. So much talk Sean Green has gone, talk of Carlos Delgado being traded. How do you explain how well Toronto has played this year so far?
Well, you know what, these guys just go out and play hard every day. I mean, if you can follow by example Raul Mondesi, who just runs everything out. He's a locomotive, and you know, and that inspires other guys to go out there and play just as hard. And you know, and that's what we do. We go out there, we play hard for 27 outs, and you know, it gets contagious. And you know, with the young staff that we have, you know, either side, it's you know, it's something to me that you just have to go out there and make the good pitches and keep the team in the game, and you've got a chance of winning.
All right, back to you, Bob.
Joe, that is the sort of play Jim Edmonds seems to be making almost every night this year in St. Louis. And, of course, Angels fans watched him do it for several seasons out on the West Coast.
Well, watch him. He makes this catch, and then he turns around. He says to the left fielder, Guerrero, he says, wow. I think he was a little impressed. Well, he runs. He keeps the ball over his shoulder, and that is a difficult play. That is not an easy play.
That ball was hit by the Orioles' Mike Bordick, batting for David Wells.
And look at this. I mean, look at this play. I mean, it's over his shoulder.
Roberto Alomar slices that one foul. Kevin Brown is the new pitcher for the National League.
There you see the Gold Gloves that he has won. Both of those coming in the American League. But with plays like that, he'll probably win one in the National League sooner or later.
So Randy Johnson pitched the first, Danny Graves the second, and now Kevin Brown, 8-2 this year with a 2.38 ERA, second in the National League to Randy Johnson's 1.80. Johnson a spectator now. This for Brown of the Dodgers is his 5th All-Star appearance. A ball and 2 strikes.
Kevin Brown has a great fastball, 2 different fastballs. He throws a great sinking fastball and a riding fastball, one that stays up, and he throws a slider. There's a sinker down. When you want a competitor on the mound, this is the guy that you think about. I mean, this guy wants the ball, he knows how to win, and he likes to pitch the tough games.
Rolled foul, still 2-2. Dave Winfield made the play. He's the honorary American League coach tonight, and he's on the lines at first base.
In '97 in the LCS here, Kevin Brown argued with Jim Leyland to stay in the ball game, and then he went out and won the ball game for the Marlins. And they went on to defeat the Braves in the LCS.
If it's pleasantries you want, Kevin Brown is not your man. If it's a tough competitor you're looking for, he's one of the best. Full count to Alomar. Brown was the winning pitcher in the 1992 All-Star Game. He was a member of the Texas Rangers then. And he walks Alomar.
Good eye there by Alomar.
Here's Robbie Alomar. This is symptomatic of the modern game. He's a fabulous player, an 11-time All-Star. He's been an All-Star with 4 different teams: the Padres, the Blue Jays, the Orioles, and now the Indians.
And that is unusual for a guy of his caliber, because I mean, he is a superstar player.
Now here's Jeter, who doubled his first time up. Hits one through the middle. Alomar's going to stop at second. 2 on with 1 out, and Jeter's 2 for 2.
Derek Jeter is definitely a free swinger. The first pitch he sees that he thinks he can hit hard, I mean, he swings at it. He doesn't take a lot of pitches, and he grounds this right back through the middle. Kevin Brown started the sinker off the plate outside and moved back over the plate. He hits it right back up the middle.
So now an RBI chance for Bernie Williams, who's knocked home 80 already this season.
What's interesting, Bob, is over the last couple of years the Yankees have won the World Championship. They really didn't have a legitimate MVP candidate. Now I think they do. I think Bernie Williams is definitely an MVP candidate. Derek Jeter and Williams were both kind of head-to-head the last couple of years, but I think Bernie Williams is definitely a candidate to be the MVP.
Strike 1 to Williams, who grounded to short, batting right-handed against Randy Johnson in the first.
There you see his numbers. Last year 115 runs batted in, and right now he's on pace to drive in 150 or so. But as you mentioned, a lot of guys are on pace to drive in 140 to 50.
You got to adjust these numbers for inflation, the same way you would prices or salaries. A called strike, 0-2.
I guess if you made $100,000 a year in 1970, you were rich. Make $100,000 now, you're not rich anymore.
Still doing all right.
Still doing all right, and that's the way these numbers are reflective of the hitters.
A ball and 2 strikes to Bernie Williams. The American League trying to break through against a tough customer in Kevin Brown, who was allowed 3 runs or less in all but 1 of his starts this year. He always gives his team a chance to win. Good speed on the bases. Alomar away from second. Jeter off of first. And a fastball is high, 2-2. Jason Giambi from Oakland is on deck. 2-2 pitch. Fouled off. With Bernie Williams at the plate, we're reminded of the Yankees situation. They played well in the last week prior to the All-Star game, edged back into first place. And while they have a chance to return to the World Series, they are not the prohibitive favorites they have been in recent years. They've come back to the pack a bit. Another 2-2 pitch and another foul ball.
The Yankees have set the bar so high that, the last couple of years they won 114 games 2 years ago, so everyone kind of figures they're supposed to do that every year. That's very difficult to do. They had a lot of things go their way to win those 114 ball games, but they're still a veteran team that knows how to win, so I expect them to be there at the end, and I expect them to play very well in August and September.
And when you've got Mariano Rivera, who we saw there with his battery mate Jorge Posada, that gives you an edge over most teams in the majors, especially when a pennant race moves into the stretch. Again on 2-2. A little squibber toward Chipper Jones. He goes to the bag for the force. He fires across the diamond, and Williams beats it there. 2 on with 2 out.
Well, this ball he jams him, so Chipper has to wait for it. Now he grabs it, he goes to the bag, but Bernie Williams runs well. Chipper makes the play perfectly, but Williams runs well, and he beats the play at first base. Nice play by Chipper. He made the right choice. He couldn't have gotten a double play going second to first, so he wiped out the lead runner.
Here's Giambi, who fanned against Randy Johnson in the first. Ball 1 to him.
And after hitting against Randy Johnson, it must look like Kevin Brown's throwing underhand if you're a left-handed hitter.
Swing and a miss, 1-1.
Another good sinker from Kevin.
Brown throws what players call a heavy ball.
Very heavy, and this ball here just explodes down. See, it's a strike. It's up above the knees, and by the time he swings at it, it's well below the knees.
Missed the inside corner, 2-1. To show you what kind of logjam of talent there is at first base, especially in the American League, these are the American League first basemen not here. Rafael Palmeiro, Frank Thomas, John Olerud, Mo Vaughn, all having big seasons.
And I am personally disappointed that Frank's not here, because he's on the team with the best record in all of baseball, and he has great numbers. So I really think that your team doing as well as his team has, and he has a chance to be the MVP in the league, I think that's sending a bad message. I think it's about team and the guys that are winning or helping their teams win.
Full count to the American League starting first baseman tonight, the A's' Jason Giambi.
Well, the fact that Giambi was selected to start and Jermaine Dye, supposedly 2 small market teams, I think that's great also. The fans are very knowledgeable. They're rewarding players who are playing well, even if they are in a small market.
The runners go on the payoff pitch, and they'll have to come back. Pitching in Atlanta always means something to Kevin Brown. He's from McIntyre, Georgia, which is near Macon, and which has a listed population of 552. If you're a big leaguer of any description, you've got a pretty good chance to be the most important guy from McIntyre, with only 551 others in competition. But if you're Kevin Brown, no contest. The bases are loaded on the walk. In contrast to his predecessors, who have breezed through their inning of work, Brown has now thrown 23 pitches here in the third. Here's Carl Everett, who would have been on the team in any case, but got a chance to start after the Indians' Manny Ramirez turned up hurt. Ball 1 to him. Jeter at third, Williams at second. Giambi, who walked to load him up, is at first. Up and in, 2-0. The last Grand Slam in All-Star competition, you saw the graphic a moment ago, is also still the only one, remarkably enough, 1983 at the old Comiskey Park by Freddie Lynn off Atlee Hammaker. Now Carl Everett, the former Astro, is hitting .329 for the Red Sox. Sitting on a 2-0 pitch from Brown that misses.
Sometimes you get in an all-star game, and as a pitcher, your adrenaline's flowing and you overthrow a little bit. And I think that's what's happening to Kevin Brown, because he never has trouble with his control.
Do you give an all-star the take sign on 3-0?
Yes.
No.
Man. 3-0 with the bases loaded and 2 outs.
He was wailing.
High fastball, and he can't catch up with it.
And he can't catch up with that one either. Top of the third, no score. Bases loaded, 2 out, and a 3-2 pitch coming from Kevin Brown to Carl Everett. The runners go, and he pops it up. Let's see if it stays in. It won't. Hot and muggy night in Atlanta. Sweat pouring from Carl Everett.
Actually, if you're a player, Bob, you love it like this. Very easy to get loose. And this is the type of weather that you love to play baseball in.
Everett has hit 24 homers this year. From the last 2 swings, it appears he's looking to touch one off here tonight. He'll settle for an RBI walk. Jeter comes across. 1-0 American League.
That's the 3rd walk this inning.
And it brings a visit from Bobby Cox. Derek Jeter receiving congratulations. He's 2 for 2, and he scored the game's first run. It never gets any easier in an all-star game. Now Brown has to work to Ivan Rodriguez. Pudge had an opposite field single in his only at-bat thus far. Ball 1. As great as Rodriguez is behind the plate, one of the best ever, there's been talk for a while of converting him to a second baseman to try and prolong his career. And he says he wants to go to the Bucky Dent Baseball School in the offseason to work on playing the infield and also to work on switch hitting. If it ain't broke, why fix it? He slashes this one to center, but Jim Edmonds is there to end the inning. The Americans score 1 and leave 3. After 2.5, they lead it 1-0. Interest in the USA Olympic baseball team will be increased by the presence of Tommy Lasorda. As the team's manager, we'll be seeing him in Sydney in a little more than 2 months.
Bob, I saw him a couple of weeks ago in L.A., and he said he's going to have his players so fired up they're going to think they're the 1927 Yankees.
They may need it versus Cuba, Japan, even the host nation Australia is growing stronger in baseball. The White Sox James Baldwin is the new American League pitcher. Joe Torre told us before the game he wants to get Baldwin in early, and he's done that because Baldwin's wife is expecting a baby any moment. He's going to hop on a plane before this game is over back to Chicago as soon as his stint is done.
And for James, it'll be his second child. He has a son, James III.
Jeffrey Hammonds of the Rockies, a late addition, swings on the 3-0 pitch and fouls it off. He's pinch hitting for Kevin Brown. Those 65 RBIs have come in 64 games. How much do he and his teammates like to hit at Coors Field? Fly ball shallow right. Jermaine Dye for the catch. And it's begun to rain lightly now. Not enough for the umbrellas to pop out just yet, but there was a chance of rain in the forecast. Quick thunderstorm came through about 3:30 this afternoon. Here are some folks who've come prepared. Back to the top of the order for Barry Larkin. At age 36, he's still his league's best shortstop. In the American League, he'd have heavier competition. When a guy like Omar Vizquel can't make the All-Star team, that tells you what's going on in the AL at that position. Two and one.
I think James Baldwin has been a real big factor for the Chicago White Sox. As we mentioned, they have the best record in baseball, and he's been their staff leader.
2-2.
And he's a guy that they always felt had a lot of potential, but had never realized his potential. And this year he's pitching great.
His record is 11-4. His ERA a bit over 4, which is acceptable these days.
It's about winning, and he is winning.
As is his team. Baldwin's picked up some baseball insight from an interesting source. He's developed a friendship with the 97-year-old Negro League legend Ted Double Duty Radcliffe, so named because in a doubleheader he once caught the first game and pitched the second. Pop back of second, and Alomar makes the play. So James Baldwin says, I don't really converse with Double Duty. I just sit there and listen. Some of those old Negro Leaguers, Buck O'Neill perhaps foremost among them, spin the greatest yarns, have the greatest appreciation for the game. If you're ever in Kansas City and have a chance to drop by the Negro League Museum there, it's a wonderful way to spend a day if you're a baseball fan.
Some of my greatest moments, Bob, were the times that I was able to sit and listen to Satchel Paige before he passed away, talking about the Negro Leagues. They do have some great stories to tell.
Chipper Jones had a single his first time up. Baldwin's 2-0 pitch. Hit in the air toward the gap in left center field and carrying pretty well, and this ball is gone. Hometown hero ties it at 1.
Bob, I believe that most hitters now are better low ball hitters because they're lifting. Here's a low fastball out over the middle of the plate, and Chipper Jones lifts it into the left field seats for a home run.
When it left the bat, it looked like a gapper. But it had enough to get over the wall at about the 380 sign, and now Guerrero spanks a single through the hole on the left side. Here's Sammy, who struck out looking against David Wells in the first. Cuts and misses. Tied at 1, last half of the third. And a called strike 0-2. The last time Baldwin faced Sammy Sosa, Sammy clouded a homer to dead center field off him this past Saturday at Wrigley Field. The Cubs really roughed Baldwin up in that outing, his last outing prior to the All-Star game. He lifts it into shallow right. Alomar sprinting toward the line from second base, and he has it. We're tied at 1 after Chipper Jones went deep to the opposite field.
That ball's gone, man. All right. Come on, Sammy.
Bobby Cox, not just a good manager, could be an announcer. Said that one was gone. He was right. This live view is courtesy of the Bud One Airship, the beer with the fresh, clean taste that's never filling. Budweiser, the official beer of Major League Baseball. Here's Jim Gray.
All right, down in the dugout with Bobby Cox. Bobby, how much of a nightmare is it for you, not only before the game, but now during the game, to juggle this roster?
Well, it's a little bit more difficult, Jim, in the National League. With the American League, you can almost script your lineup exactly. You could tell the players which inning they're going to hit in and play in or pitch in. The National League's a little bit different. You know, because the pitcher has to hit, and you want to double switch and things like that, as we did with Gary. And now we might get Gary 3 at bats tonight. If we can score a couple runs, Sheffield will get 3.
Even though it's tough to get all the guys in, a lot of people talk about expanding the roster. Would you like to see that?
I think it's big enough at 30 right now. You know, if you expand it to 35, you still have 6 guys that were disappointed. So 28 was a little rough. 30, I think, just about right.
All right, Bobby, we'll let you get back to managing. Check in with you later.
Thanks.
Bob, upstairs to you.
Jim, thank you. The Gary that Bobby Cox referred to as the new left fielder, Gary Sheffield of the Dodgers, who takes over for Vladimir Guerrero. Sheffield will hit 9th, and the new pitcher, Al Leiter from the Mets, will occupy the 3rd spot in the order. 3 balls and a strike to Jermaine Dye. There are no red lights tonight.
I agree. Maybe they may not even have any signs.
You are swinging on every pitch. We've seen several cuts on 3-0 already. And Dye has a leadoff walk. Well, Joe, the last time the All-Star game was played in Atlanta over at the old ballpark, a hometown player hit a home run. It wasn't just any hometown player. It was Henry Aaron back in 1972. And it's happened again 28 years later. With the All-Star game returning to Atlanta, Chipper Jones' home run has tied it at 1. Here's the Indians' Travis Fryman, the starting third baseman. Hit hard. Jeff Kent has it come up on him and gets by him. Dye will stop at second.
Well, Kent goes over, tries to get in front of it and knock it down. Ball's hit sharply right back through the middle by Fryman. If Kent comes up with it, it's a double play, but he slides into it and it goes on into center field for a base hit.
So with runners at first and second and nobody out, Joe Torre goes to his bench again, and here's Kansas City's Mike Sweeney, a converted catcher, now playing first base and hitting a mere .360. Ball 1 to him. Sweeney fouls it off. Our spies down by the American League dugout heard Joe Torre say to Mike Sweeney, with runners at first and second in a tie game and nobody out, hey, we don't even have a bunt sign. Go up there and swing.
Well, that fits Joe Torre. When he was a player, he liked to swing too. He wasn't much for bunting.
If you had Joe's speed or lack thereof, you wouldn't want to lay one down either. A ball and 2 strikes. Sweeney at age 26, making his first All-Star appearance. And here's Leiter's 1-2 pitch to him. Larkin at short. Bobbles it. Everybody's safe. Bases loaded. They had a shot at the double play. The force should have been a certainty. Instead, they get nothing.
Well, I think that was because Barry was looking up and anticipating he was going to take the ball and step on second. Let's see if he looks up a little quickly here. No, he just missed it. The ball came up on him a little bit. But he was going to make the play himself. He was going to go to second base. So he's going to catch it and go to second. He's not going to flip it to the second baseman. But the ball took a little erratic hop and it hit off the heel of his glove.
So with the bases juiced and nobody out, here's Alomar, who swings on the first one and pops it up. Infield fly rule as it's taken by Galarraga. So Robbie's now 0 for 2 with a walk. And it brings up Jeter, who's 2 for 2. He's doubled and singled and scored the game's first run in the top of the third. A line drive, and he's 3 for 3. 1 run home. Fryman being waved in. It's 3-1 American League. Jeter has knocked in 2 and scored the other.
So he's kind of justifying the faith that Joe Torre had in starting him in this ball game. He's a first ball hitter. He gets a fastball pretty much in the middle of the plate, and he lines it to left field for a base hit and left center field.
Here's Bernie Williams. He's 0 for 2. A little nubber in front of the plate. Kendall pounces on it, throws him out. The runners move up to second and third. Bernie Williams is now 0 for 3. And it's up to Jason Giambi, who struck out and walked. Fastball inside. Al Leiter comes into this game with a record of 10-2 and the 3rd best ERA in the National League. He goes off speed and Giambi rolls it foul.
Normally this could be a ball game deciding situation because we get ahead 5-1, but with so many great hitters on both sides, a 4-run deficit is not impossible to overcome.
And getting everyone into the game, or nearly everyone into the game, is more of an objective now than it was when you were playing.
Yeah, before you made sure you would win the ball game or get a comfortable lead, then you would make the changes.
He tipped it back into Kendall's glove. Jason held onto it. The strikeout ends the inning. The American League scores 2 and leaves 2. And they lead by 2 going to the bottom of the 4th.